The stars shimmered like cold fire beyond the viewport, but Calavia had no time for wonder. The simulator cockpit vibrated violently as another hypothetical blast rocked her cruiser, warning klaxons screaming in her ears. She swiped her hand across the holographic command array, redirecting shield power to the port side. Too slow. A red flash. Critical failure. Simulation terminated, the AI intoned, sterile and final. Calla yanked off the neural link helmet and blinked in the harsh light of the training bay. The older cadets behind the glass snickered. Again. Better luck next century, Junior, drawled Lieutenant Kern, lounging with the easy arrogance of a man who never had to try very hard. She said nothing. Words wouldn't change the sneers. They never had. At 17, Calla was the youngest officer in the Terran fleet. Not a prodigy, at least, not in the way they wanted her to be. No elite bloodline, no family with medals hanging over ancestral fireplaces. Just a sharp mind, a sharper memory, and an instinct no sim could predict. She belonged to no one, and no one like that. She walked out of the training chamber, boots striking too loud in the hallway's hush. The TNS Velabound was a cold ship, not in temperature, but in spirit. The veterans had earned their stripes. She'd been handed hers by a council more curious than confident. In the dim observation lounge, she found Arkel coiled in his usual meditative position. The insectoid technician was alien in every way, 3 pairs of eyes, clicking mandibles, translucent wings that never moved, but he was the only soul aboard who never looked at her like she was an accident waiting to happen. You failed again, he stated without judgment. I adjusted the probability matrix. The sim recalibrated the enemy's response curve faster than expected, she replied, flopping onto the bench beside him. Arkel clicked thoughtfully. Or perhaps the matrix adjusted to you. She blinked at him. What's that supposed to mean? He turned his head slightly, a gesture that, in his species, meant amusement. Chaos confuses even the machines. Before she could reply, the ship-wide intercom crackled to life. All hands to stations. Unscheduled contact detected. This is not a drill. Calla was on her feet before the message ended, Arkel right behind her. The ship trembled subtly, real this time. Real gravity, real tension. In the command deck, everything snapped into place. Officers shouting orders, navigation overlays blinking red. Captain Moren stood at the center, face pale, jaw set. He barely acknowledged her presence, but she didn't wait for permission. She slid into the tactical chair and linked into the fleet feed. Zakari scouts. 3 vessels, cloaked until 3 clicks ago, announced comms. We're already within strike range. Captain Moren cursed under his breath. Why didn't the outpost relay a warning? Outpost went dark 7 minutes before we picked them up. Which meant the Zakari weren't just patrolling, they were advancing. Calla's fingers flew over the interface, her mind racing. The enemy ships were fanned out in a tight spearhead, herding Velabound toward a debris field. It looked like chance. It wasn't. They're shepherding us, she said. Trying to limit maneuverability. No one asked you, cadet, snapped Kern, who stood at the auxiliary console. She ignored him. If we shift vector 22 degrees portside and fire a low-frequency pulse across grid 17, we'll ping the cloaked 4th ship. It's flanking. Moren's eyes flicked to her. He hesitated. Arkel stepped forward. Her assessment is logical. I confirm. Moren nodded, just barely. Do it. The ship pulsed. A moment later, the 4th Zakari vessel flickered into view like a ghost exhaling. It had been there all along, waiting to ambush. Holy hell, whispered someone. They're adapting fast, said Calla. Too fast. Then came the first volley. Explosions tore across the hull's outer plating. Shields strained. The bridge lit up in crimson warnings. Moren barked commands, struggling to maintain formation. But the enemy tactics shifted with every response. No 2 attacks came from the same angle, and the usual countermeasures failed. Calla saw it, too clearly. They're running simulations on us, she said. They've started pre-adapting. They're learning from our training models. Another blast. The ship buckled. A support beam crashed across the command walkway. Moiraine went down in a spray of blood. The deck fell silent for a beat. She stood slowly, not asking this time. I'm assuming command. Kern stepped forward, voice sharp. You don't have the... She met his eyes. We die if we hesitate. Akel spoke. She is now highest rank conscious and qualified. Regulation 4.12.b. There was a pause. Then Kern stepped back, fury etched in his face, but silent. Kala turned to the command console. Begin microburst decoy protocol. Target their anticipated positions, not their current ones. Send drone pods into the debris field. Program them to simulate escape vectors. But that's suicide bait, said the navigation officer. Exactly. The Zakari will predict us fleeing. Let them. Meanwhile, we loop around and strike their neural relay ship. One by one, the bridge crew obeyed. The enemy ships turned, chasing the fake signals. Then came the kill shot. A single missile, guided by her recalculated trajectory, slipped between two fragments of shattered satellite and struck the Zakari relay at its core. The alien ships staggered, literally. Their coordination frayed. Fire returned erratically. A moment later, they vanished into warp space, scattering like startled predators. Silence fell across the bridge. Kala exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Captain Moiraine was alive, barely. Medics were on him already. But when his eyes opened and found her at the helm, something shifted. Not respect, not yet. But the beginning of something else, recognition, maybe. Later, after the fire suppression systems hissed and the light stabilized, Kala stood alone on the bridge, staring at the spot where the Zakari relay had burned. They would be back. And next time, they wouldn't underestimate her. Neither, she suspected, would anyone else. And somewhere far beyond the stars, something alien had seen her, really seen her. And it was beginning to wonder. Darkness pulsed at the heart of the Zakari mothership. In a chamber lined with pulsating neural cords and exoorganic nodes, the Queen Mind received the battle data. She processed the human female's maneuvers not with confusion, but with curiosity sharpened into unease. The patterns had fractured. Where the Terran fleet once moved with algorithmic predictability, this anomaly, had danced through probabilities like wind through reeds. Designation, unpatterned. Risk factor, escalating. The Queen Mind did not fear. She adapted. But adaptation required understanding, and the human girl eluded both. Meanwhile, aboard the Veilbound, the silence of victory had long since curdled into tension. Official recognition from Terran Command arrived in clipped transmissions, commendation, confirmation of tactical success, and a temporary elevation of authority. Temporary, Kala muttered under her breath, watching the data scroll disappear. They had commended her, but not embraced her. Every word carried the tone of caution, as if praising her too loudly might legitimize rebellion. The ship's hierarchy had become a house of brittle glass. Moiraine had returned to partial command but left most of the bridge work to her. He spoke less, watched more. And Kern? Kern obeyed orders with a venomous precision that warned her how much he resented breathing under her command. Only Akel remained unchanged. The alien sat near her at every strategy briefing, lending his silent endorsement through presence alone. You are not like the others, he said one evening, unprompted. Kala arched a brow. Because I don't scream during maneuvers. Because you calculate instinctively. You feel mathematics. It is biologically rare. She chuckled. A poetic way of saying I'm a freak. No. A force. He paused. The hive has seen you. Her smile faded. How do you know that? Akel hesitated, then lowered his voice. I am not of the Zakari, but our ancestral networks once connected. The Queen Mind watches anomalies. You are now a singularity in her perception. Before she could reply, an alert pulsed through the ship's systems. Not an attack, an emergency communication. A science outpost at the edge of the Vega expanse had gone dark. Again. This time, deeper than silence. Not a single distress ping. Just emptiness. Fleet Command issued an urgent request. Reconnaissance. Observation. Do not engage. Kala's fingers hovered over the acceptance code. Do not engage, she repeated aloud. They always say that. Authorization granted. Velabound turned its bow to the stars. The Vega expanse was a quiet frontier, once. Now its silence felt menacing. The outpost orbited a dead world laced with mining tunnels and seismic instability. Perfect hiding ground for something with too many limbs and no name for mercy. The station came into view like a ghost ship, its lights flickering like dying stars. No motion. No signs of struggle. Just absence. Kala narrowed her eyes. Too clean. Akel adjusted the sensor array. There is residue. Neural signatures, not human. Recently decoupled. The Zakari were here. Kala didn't blink. They are still here. She activated the probe drones and launched 3 into the station's docking corridors. The feed came back jittery, but clear enough. The walls bore signs of invasive biology, webbing of unknown composition, spore traces, torn data cables reshaped into something unnervingly vascular. Then the drones froze mid-transmission. One by one, their signals died. No contact. No sound. Kern's voice cut through the tension. This is a trap. We pull back. No, Kala said. We spring it. The room erupted in protest. She raised a hand. They are studying us. Gathering intel. But they expect fear. Predict withdrawal. We give them unpredictability. She laid out the plan in tight, clipped instructions. Deploy cloaked drone fighters in silent mode. Simulate an approaching convoy. Then, cut power to Velabound entirely, make them think they've neutralized us. The crew obeyed, some with admiration, others with trembling hands. Darkness cloaked the bridge as emergency lights clicked off. Only the humming of backup life support remained. Kala sat in the command chair, breath shallow, heart steady. Moments passed. Then, like shadows peeling off from shadow, the Zakari came. No ships. No war cries. They drifted from the mining tunnels like phantoms, organisms bonded to ship fragments, reshaped by biotech into semi-living boarding vessels. And they moved not toward the silent drones. They came for Velabound. Kala whispered, now. The drones ignited, exploding outward in a synchronized detonation that folded into the vacuum, catching the Zakari boarding crafts mid-approach. Fire bloomed like silent rage across the dock. But one remained. A larger vessel, sleek and curved like bone grown over steel, emerged behind the station's gravity shadow. It didn't fire. It transmitted. Kala frowned. They are opening a channel. Static resolved into a sound like many voices thinking together. You do not belong to their algorithms, the voice said. Kala stood, stepping closer to the console. I don't belong to anyone. You are chaos. You must be known. Her skin chilled. I'm not here to explain myself. No. But we will follow. The feed cut. The ship turned, bent space around itself, and vanished. Silence reclaimed the bridge. The crew exhaled as one. Kern sat pale, silent. Kala turned slowly, her voice low. They are not just watching. They are listening. Morin's voice came through the bridge link. Weak, but firm. And they've given you a name. Commander. Kala didn't answer. But in her mind, she felt the weight of it settle across her shoulders. Not a title. A challenge. The chamber buzzed with quiet hostility as Kala stepped onto the dais of the Terran High Council. Above her, 5 admirals loomed like ancient statues, polished and pale beneath artificial light. Behind them, a screen flickered with footage, her footage, the drone detonations, the surgical strike on the Zakari relay, her voice echoing in the dark as she challenged an alien fleet with words instead of weapons. Unauthorized engagement. Dozens of casualties. A direct override of fleet protocol, Admiral Juno said coldly. Why? Kala met his gaze. Because if I hadn't, you'd be asking each other where Earth's last fleet went. There was silence. Then murmurs. Then a voice, Admiral tenor, older, quieter. And now they speak to you. They recognize a threat, Kala said. One they don't understand. That makes them hesitate. Or adapt, Juno countered. You've become a pattern. That's the first step toward obsolescence. They didn't try to destroy me, Kala said. They tried to name me. She was dismissed with no verdict, only the knowledge that politics didn't fear enemies, only those they couldn't control. Back aboard the Veilbound, the silence was different now. Not doubt. Not awe. Expectation. The crew watched her with eyes that wanted a future and had begun to believe she could give it. Even Kern, who had once made her every breath a battle, stood when she entered the bridge. Not out of protocol. Out of acknowledgement. The data feeds showed the inevitable. A Zakari superweapon, unknown class, deep space origin, trajectory locked onto Earth. The last hope lay not in defending the planet, but in preventing the weapon from ever arriving. Kala stared at the trajectory for a long time before speaking. They've built something that moves between our physics. It bends tachyon flow like silk. We can't outrun it. We won't outgun it. She turned. But we can redirect it. Her plan was built on wild precision. Use stolen Zakari psionic hardware, harvested from the relay ship, to simulate a neural law. Make the weapon believe its target had shifted. Feed it a new destination, a dying star in Sector D9 with a magnetic field capable of compressing even Zakari alloy into vapor. The crew moved with urgency and quiet dread. There were no rehearsals. No simulations. Just theory, instinct, and trust. As they neared the intercept point, Kala stood alone in the war chamber. The neural interface crown hovered above the terminal like a silver halo. She lowered it onto her head and plunged into a realm of thought not her own. The Zakari interface was not built for human minds. It shrieked with silent pulses, burning logic into sensation, emotion into pattern. But Kala did not retreat. She reached through it, into it. And the Armada felt her. Their weapon faltered. It paused in space as if unsure. Then, for the briefest moment, it turned. Stars shifted. The gravity of a dying sun yawned open. The weapon shuddered, drawn by her signal. It crossed the event horizon just as its senses recalibrated. Too late. In a white burst of silent collapse, it was gone. So was the signal. Kala gasped, falling back into her body like a diver breaching the surface. Her nose bled. Her hands trembled. But she was alive. The fleet was alive. And Earth was still home. Later, on a quiet outpost in the Orion Reach, Kala stood before a new class of cadets, human and Zakari alike. Their voices were different, their eyes still wary. But they listened. You'll hear people say chaos is dangerous, she told them. They are not wrong. But it's also potential. It's every answer they didn't plan for. She paused, glancing at the stars beyond the dome. And when they try to name you, remember this, you're not here to fit. You're here to change the game. Somewhere, far beyond those stars, the queen mind stirred in her hive chamber. She no longer sought to predict the human girl. She sought to understand her. And understanding, she now knew, began with surrender. The asteroid field spun slowly around the derelict station, like broken teeth orbiting a forgotten jaw. Veilbound hung in silent proximity, lights dimmed, systems in passive scan. Kala stood at the forward viewport, arms crossed, eyes scanning the fragments not for metal or mass, but for motion. This place shouldn't exist, Kern said quietly from her side. No records. No signal. And yet here it is, Kala replied. The station hadn't been built, it had grown. A lattice of fused Zakari and Terran technology, pulsing faintly with alien bioluminescence. No doors. No ducking codes. Just a slow beacon rhythm like a heartbeat. It's calling to you, Arkel said, his voice low and metallic behind her. She turned. You feel it too? He nodded. Not like you do. But yes. A resonance. It's not a trap. It's a challenge. Kala considered that. The Queen Mind had vanished after the weapon's destruction, retreated, analysts said, or perhaps reassessing. But the truth was more complex. After the psionic signal, Kala had felt it, not absence, but watching. Not hatred, but hunger for meaning. Now the Queen had built something in the dark, an interface. A place between species. I'm going in, Kala said. Kern stiffened. Alone. It was made for me. She took only a light suit, no weapons. Anything hostile enough to kill her wouldn't be stopped by a blaster. And something deeper in her bones whispered, this isn't war. Not yet. She crossed the gap in a small pod, landing in the station's open cradle. As her boots touched the floor, the surface rippled, like memory responding to presence. The interior pulsed gently with breathable air. Latticed corridors shifted as she walked, sensing intent. At the core, she found it, a vast chamber, its walls alive with shifting images, not images, moments. Battles she had fought. Words she had spoken. Her voice, echoed and analyzed. Then, herself. A perfect replica, standing across from her, studying her with tilted curiosity. You learn by imitation, she said aloud. The replica blinked. Then it spoke, we learn by integration. Kala stepped closer. Why now? Why here? The voice replied, not from the mouth, but from the room itself. We built weapons. You built walls. Both failed. Kala nodded slowly. So now you want bridges? No. We want paths. You are one. She swallowed. And if I refuse? A flicker, her image crumbled into dust and reassembled as another version of herself. One scarred, one cruel-eyed. A version that had burned without mercy. That is also a path. It wasn't a threat. It was a possibility. You want me to lead something? Lead? No. Become. She understood. The Queen Mind hadn't merely observed her. It had begun shaping itself around her. The Zakari weren't seeking conquest anymore, they were evolving, and she was the missing data point. You want me to speak for both sides. We want you to speak what does not yet exist. A third figure emerged, a hybrid. Terran and Zakari. Tall, lithe, eyes bright with strange intelligence. Not machine. Not drone. A future. Kala stepped back. I'm not ready. You were never meant to be. That is why you are. The chamber pulsed again. Her suit read a download spike, a transmission encoded in psionic bandwidth. Not a virus. A blueprint. What is this? A seed. And just like that, the station dimmed. When she returned, she said nothing. The crew could see the change in her posture, the calm in her eyes. Not burdened. Anchored. She handed the neural core to Arkel. We build. But carefully. Not as saviors. As translators. Kern raised an eyebrow. Of what? Kala turned to the stars. Of what comes next? And out there, the Queen Mind watched, not from above, but from beside. The war was over. Now came the harder task. Understanding.